Hello, fellow spelunkers. They say insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different outcomes. But what if you do and they're all worse? What if every experiment teaches you something new and the lesson is usually, oh, that can kill me too? You begin to understand that pain is the greatest mentor, and in this training course, that spider is going to enlighten you. Spelunky 2 is a psychological endurance experiment disguised as a game. No! It takes place in a timeline where humanity lost all jobs to alien-enhanced AI and decided the only viable profession left was repeated cave death simulator. This game punishes everything: greed, hesitation, confidence, or playing with other people. Don't let the cartoon visuals fool you into thinking it's a children's game. One bad decision in the wrong place at the wrong time will result in starting from the beginning. Most of the deaths are on you, but the rest are because the game works better than you'd expect. And yet, you come back. It's the perfect PSA for addictions. You'll promise yourself that you'll play just one more run, and the next thing you know is that your phone flashes 12 missed calls and a voicemail from HR that sounds legally actionable. Hypothetically speaking, of course, but like all recurring nightmares, this one had a beginning. A modest little freeware game called Spelunky. 2008. Considering I'm not going to make a separate video for each one, I'll briefly mention their existence. Derek Yu wanted to repackage Rogue into a more ball-busting real-time experience. What resulted was classic Spelunky. Before anyone mentions it, yes, I did play it in windowed mode, not by choice. There's no true full-screen option. You can press F4 all you want, sure, it technically does something, and if you launch the separate config executable, you'll see an exciting promise: full screen and resolution settings. What you do get is the same square-ass 4x3 window, now scaled slightly larger, surrounded by thick black bars. Your F4 key isn't broken. This is your full screen. But what about the game? It's engaging. It has its flaws. The controls are so rough, and I don't mean a little stiff. You might not notice anything off at first, but trust me, I was struggling harder with the jump input than with any enemy on screen. But it was proof that you could take roguelike elements you'd find in top-down RPGs and put them into a side-scrolling platformer. But why stop here when this small game could be so much more? After that, we got Spelunky HD. This version improved on the original in almost every way, but it was still not enough. And fast forward some more and you have what I considered peak with Spelunky 2. If I had to compare them, classic Spelunky is a dry wurst broth, functional but a bit hard to chew. Spelunky HD is your proper deli sandwich, crunchy, flavored, and refined. And Spelunky 2, it's a towering club, messy, overwhelming, but once you figure out how to bite into it, it's perfect. On the surface, Spelunky 2 is simple enough. You descend into procedurally generated caves made of interconnected rooms, grab as many shiny objects as you can, and try not to die in the process. Enemies like bats, snakes, and spiders are your basic punching bags. They're not the real threat, they're there to just keep you distracted long enough for the environment to actually murder you. Arrow traps and spikes are your two most frequent killers, and as primitive and obvious as they look, they'll end more of your runs than you'll ever admit. Levels in Spelunky are technically designed so you could reach the exit without using a single rope or bomb. But where's the dopamine in that? Those juicy crates full of loot are almost always stashed just out of reach, behind a spike trap, maybe walled off entirely. That's where your gear comes in. Ropes and bombs let you carve your own path, or if you're thinking outside the box, you can improvise. Maybe there's a key nearby. It looks important, but is it worth burning one of your precious ropes? Technically yes, but sometimes you get lucky. A mole might duck towards you just at the right moment, giving you a free ride up. There's rarely a single answer. Those spikes I mentioned earlier are harmless if you know how to approach them, like gently floating down with a cape or clinging to a ledge and easing yourself off. The dart trap can be disarmed as well, with a rock, a corpse, a rope, even a single gold ingot you whip into its line of sight. But as you know, exploration tends to take a toll on your health. Thankfully, pets exist. Deliver one to the exit and you get a measly 1 health. Doesn't sound like much, but it's better than nothing. In the previous Spelunky, they used to be damsels, but no matter what form they take now, they can still be weaponized. They're surprisingly effective. Just be mindful of where you throw them or where they walk, because you can't rescue a corpse. Of course, there's a much more spiritually fulfilling way to put your companions to use. Some rooms that are off the main path of the level have a small chance to spawn a Kali altar. Drop a volunteer on it and they'll vanish into a puff of purple mist. Doesn't have to be alive either, corpses work fine, though they earn fewer favor points. And yes, players are also valid currency. Why sacrifice at all? Because the rewards are worth it. After enough offerings, Kelly grants you the Kapala, a skull cup that turns blood into health. Suddenly, you're looking at the world in a different way and asking, how do I turn this into soup? If you're amazed at a pile of corpses, offering them after getting the Kapala rewards you with a royal jelly every 8 favor points. And if you don't have anything to sacrifice right now, don't worry, your favor carries over to the next altars. In the meantime, you can gain some health by cooking a delicious turkey. Feel free to use your own culinary method. Maybe you like your meat well done with a slight salty and metallic taste. Or you want a good old lava! Compared to its predecessor, Spelunky 2 gives you the most options to heal yourself, but don't confuse generosity with mercy. It also offers a dozen of new inventive ways to die. I don't have to tell you that the moles are bullshit, and the game knows, so it throws you a mech mole pounder combo, but I somehow managed to not die, only to find myself in the next level with a trap that gives me no choice but to run straight into it or to whip it midair. Beyond your usual ropes and bombs, Spelunky 2 gives you more options for gear, backpacks, and mounts. You can carry only one thing at a time, but as long as you can hold it, nothing is off the charts. I did the math, and this ninja can lift 2 fully grown adults and a house cat that's slightly the same size. Assuming the average human in Florida weighs 62 kilograms and estimating the cat at 49 because it's slightly shorter, that means 173 kilos of meat. Or maybe I'm overthinking this, and we're actually playing as a group of genetically engineered dwarves. Have you ever seen a normal person fall 10 meters, grab a ledge, and then pull themselves up while holding a cat? Weight does determine how far something travels. A rock flies further than the caveman corpse you found lying around, but they both deal less damage than an arrow. And while we're on the topic of scale, these levels can get quite big. Big enough that you'll turn on auto-run, and that's when the death starts. You'll rush, mess up, and restart. It happens. But don't get too comfy trying to play it slow either, because time is a luxury you can't afford. The ghost is a slow-moving entity that shows up after 3 minutes, phasing through walls with a calm certainty of death. Some might interpret her as a spectral dummy mommy here to smother them with love, but she can't sway me that easily. I've got my great-grandfather's dying words from 1846 etched deep in my brain. She has a particular trait, smash the pot that spawns in every level, and she shows up early. It drops a diamond worth a small fortune, and if any standard gem drifts into her path, it gets converted into another diamond. Which sounds easy, but don't worry, the longer she sticks around, the more she multiplies until she reaches her final form. Only then you'll realize just how badly you've messed up when you're pursued by 4 apparitions, feeling the same kind of emotional regret as a child meeting their favorite content creator. So we kindly tell her to fuck off. At the end of every level, the game tallies your loot, your kills, and then shoves you straight into the next one. Then another, and another. At some point, the game breaks the tradition of levels being procedurally generated. For example, 1-4. It's a fixed level that leads to an area with a giant meatball in the middle. The idea is simple, bait him into smashing through the walls on either side, then finish the job with a bomb. This clears the path, rewarding you with a roasted turkey, a bag of bombs, and access to a door that leads to the back layer, where the game offers you a chance with a branching path. Jungle on the left, volcano on the right. One's full of plants, the other one is full of lava. This is something the older installments didn't offer. Sure, they had secret levels, but the path was always linear. But before we move onwards, find a lizard and throw it at Quillback. Trust me, it's fun. Now let's get into something more exciting. The ethical gray area between capitalism and casual homicide. The gold and gems you collect aren't just for better score. They're also your currency for buying gear from vendors. The most common of these is the shopkeeper. This old man is your go-to source for weapons, utility items, and the occasional gambling addiction. But even down in the damp armpit of earth, you can't escape inflation. Still, those bomb boxes. I mean, what's this geriatric going to do if I casually take a few things and walk away? Yell at me? Oh, I see. Turns out shoplifting in Spelunky is punishable by death. They're also surprisingly smart, if you compare them to the unwashed population of these caves. If something other than you damages his property, he won't hold you accountable. Unlike his Spelunky HD counterpart, this one has a slight more nuanced grasp of cause and effect. If an enemy damages him directly, he'll still retaliate with a shotgun blast, which might just hit a bomb bag, and that will end up blowing the whole thing up. If that happens and he dies, you can swoop in and feast on the charred remains of his wares with no consequences. If he's still alive though, give it a moment. Let nature take its course. But if you're the one who wants to disarm a dart trap and by doing so that ends up harming the shopkeeper, then that crime's on you, which earns you sin. Crimes range from petty theft to full-on geronticide. With any sin on your record, shopkeepers will start guarding level exits, get you trigger happy, and they'll set up checkpoints in the middle of your path. Even with that inconvenience, don't let that stop you from robbing them because they deserve it. But they're just doing business. Oh really? They are out here selling hired hands, which is just fancy branding for good old-fashioned slavery. They also used to run this little joint decked out with red curtains and a soft light. You know, the kind that definitely is not a brothel that could also contain a pug. So yeah, morally spotless. Whenever I see a shotgun up for sale, my inner spiritual spelunker whispers, do the noble thing. Also worth mentioning, they're cloned by the dozens off-screen like Funko Pops in a spaceship owned by Jeff Bezos, so don't worry about them. And be thankful, they're nothing like the original. They used to be absolutely insane, faster, unpredictable, and clearly hopped on Adderall mixed with drywall. So want to commit crime the right way with minimal consequences? In Spelunky, pick up an item, bait him into coming closer, and then shove a rope up his ass. That will stun him just long enough for you to make your gateway. Any passive items you touch while fleeing will get collected and won't count towards your sin total. That will start you with 2 sins. Drop to 1 after exiting the level. If you manage to get through the next level without damaging any shopkeepers, then you'll get forgiven, which means you are ready to repeat the cycle all over again. But if you're feeling quite bloodthirsty, there's always the passive aggressive route. Get closer, activate him, and watch him walk into a dart trap or a puddle of lava. You didn't do anything. Gravity and poor decision making did all the heavy lifting. And I've mentioned that this is one of the few vendors you'll come across. That is true, and not only are they happy to take your hard-earned cash, but they've got their own personal ambitions too. Meet Bing Choi. Yes, I know his name is Yang, but would you really prefer a string of turkey-based dick jokes instead? Bing is a man of simple pleasures, especially turkeys. You first stumble upon him in the dwellings. If you bring him 2, which are scattered around the level, he will let you into his so-called treasure room, which usually contains 1 gem and a single gold nugget. You'll run into him again in the first level of Jungle or Volcana, then he pops up 1 more time later, and finally in the Palace of Pleasures, where he realizes the house special is roast turkey. What a breathtaking story, but there's a better ending for him. The only real gameplay benefit to completing his quest is that buying at least 1 turkey from his shop makes them spawn more often for the rest of the run. That might sound pretty good actually, but bringing them to him is rarely simple. Thanks to the map generation, you'll often need to use ropes and bombs just to access his birds, and in early levels your starting equipment is more precious than the hope of maybe finding a crate worth the effort. Personally, I prefer to negotiate and walk away with 3 juicy turkeys or some extra favor points for Callie. But if you finish his quest the intended way, you also earn a white star. Not a metaphor, we'll get into that later. But for now, what is your goal? You're looking for your parents. Your mom's easy to find. She's stuck in a coffin in the Tides Pool alternative route. How did she get in there? That beats me, I don't know. The coffin has the structural integrity of a cardboard box and bursts open from a single whip slap. Finding your dad isn't as simple. You have to beat the game by pushing through 6 regions and making it to Tiamat's throne. And despite her grand appearance, this majestic sea deity is the least intimidating boss imaginable. She can still kill you, but you've had the entire game to gear up. A shotgun will handle her just fine. Not that I'm complaining about the difficulty curve, because before getting here you had to traverse through a literal fucking war zone, so I'm okay with this. Once she's been taken care of, you can walk through the open door opposite to her and immediately trip over your own shoelaces. But you are saved just in time by Guy Spelunky, because yes, this is actually his name. Now that you've reunited with everyone, you can finally settle down at a cozy campsite on the moon, which somehow has oxygen. But that doesn't mean you're finished. The journal isn't complete, which means there's still lots of mysteries hiding in plain sight. And that is fine, you learn by playing the game. And the more you do, the more things you start to notice. For example, that door that leads to a room with a golden chest, which after opening it with a yellow key, you can get an eye that at first it just reveals hidden gems and items. But if you go in the jungle, it starts flashing faster and faster. Does that mean there's something hidden underneath? Oh, there's a black market, and that's cool and all, but I can't afford most of this. But then you see a unique item, a hat. It always shows up in the same spot. These ancient trinkets aren't just collectibles that are similar to other items. They're a breadcrumb trail to something bigger, a second ending. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Odds are you haven't even made it far enough to realize this game has layers. Fortunately, there's a shortcut system that lets you build your way back into deeper levels across multiple runs. It's great for beginners, but here's the catch. Starting from a shortcut means you miss out on early gear and those special items I mentioned previously. So maybe you want to start fresh, but what if you're tired of dying alone? Don't you crave the privilege of respawning every level, even if that means coming back as deadweight or trying to babysit up to 3 other spelunkers? If that sounds like an endearing offer, then I present you online co-op. But Poots, I don't have friends. Yeah. Don't worry, I wouldn't have suggested this if I didn't have an alternative, and that is to go through the 9th circle of hell known as Adventure Online. Now, to be fair, some players are genuinely great, but the real issue isn't survival, it's communication. You want to get someone's attention? You do it by aggressively humping the ground. Want to signal danger? You throw a bomb at it and pray they get the message. If that sounds stupid, there's always the hired hand. He's like a meat puppet. I wouldn't consider him that outstanding, but compared to the Spelunky HD counterpart, this is a big improvement. I'd say his highlight is the ability to hold things in his hands, which gets carried between levels, but I wouldn't call him trustworthy when it comes to replacing a real spelunker. You know, one that has depth perception. Which leads us back to Adventure Online. Adding a second player might sound like it makes things easier, but you're still playing Spelunky. If there is a 1 in a million chance for a magma ball to fall and cook your colon, it will happen, and the warning signs are everywhere. Not all lessons are that straightforward though, some situations demand experience, paranoia, or both. So let's look at a few. Scenario 1. You see a guy with a power pack and a plasma cannon. What do? If you say, stay far behind him, then you're right. Scenario 2. You see a shop, but you're broke. Do you hang around waiting for teammates to go ahead and pick some gold? Absolutely not. When there's a shop, expect spontaneous felony. Final scenario. Somebody pissed off the shopkeepers, and now there's one guarding the exit. What do? If you said, let them solve it by mutually assured destruction, then congratulations, you're good to go. Grab the Jedi, reach Quillback and bait him into smashing the wall on the right to enter Volcana. Alternatively, you could take the jungle, but that means finding the black market and buying the head jet. Just remember to be on your best behavior around the merchants. Or just get the item for free, preferably by introducing one of them to a physics demonstration involving gravity and a blunt object. Volcana is preferred by many because all you really need is the Jedi and a bit of luck. That's because when you trigger the drill, there's a good chance it will tear through lava pools, a shop, an altar, or all of them at once. But with enough bombs that can be skipped. At the very bottom, you'll find a door to Vlad's castle. If you release Van Horsing back into one, he'll kill the mini-boss for you, granting access to the obligatory crown and the best backpack in the game, Vlad's cape. Isn't the jetpack the best? Used to be, until Derek made it so that any non-cape backpack explodes if you so much as graze your elbow by a flame particle. That's 10 damage instantly. Meanwhile, Vlad's cape doubles the blood orbs, which is perfect for the thirsty little goon you are. You can now move on to the Olmec fight. Instead of hiding a secret level like in the previous game, he's now standing between you and the Ankh. That's supposed to revive you so you can reach the next special item. But Derek forgot one crucial detail. detail. We are not going to do any of that. You don't actually have to dig all the way down to get it. If you head to the top right corner of the arena with 4 bombs, blast through a few specific blocks, bait Olmec into jumping on your improvised staircase, now every time he jumps, he'll slam his head into the few blocks you left, stopping just at the perfect level of that one hole in the wall. Sit on the right side of his cranium and mash the door button. Time it right, and you can slip through what was meant to be an exit-only door and grab the Ang. Now let him dig downwards so you can continue into the tide pool. But what about the temple? The tide pool is dangerous but fair, mostly things you've already dealt with. Oh, careful! No! The temple, on the other hand, it's awful. You'll get cursed, poisoned, telefragged, and compressed into a Lunchable. Some say it's like that to balance the reward you get from the challenge NPC. In the tide pool, she gives you a clone gun. It's not bad, but it's only as good as the items you find, unless you want to cover yourself in puss. But in the temple, she hands you a glowing bottle of Benadryl, which removes every debuff, heals you, and doubles the healing you receive. That sounds pretty good, but there's a catch. If you're going for the second ending, you need to die in the City of Gold on the altar while holding the Ang, which also forces you to drop your backpack. And since you're dying on purpose, you'll respawn with only 4 health, which is a pretty rough deal considering how deep into the run you already are. The tide pool path is safer, and even better, you can skip the Ankh death entirely. If you're good enough at not dying, you can even store the Ankh for later without equipping it. And I can already tell from the look on your face. How are you storing it for later? You can't pick it up. Well, that's what I thought. But somehow, and don't ask me how somebody figured this out, if you manage to understand how to phase into the Shadow Realm, you can go through blocks, pick up the Ang and drop it onto a Waddler transport tile in the Olmec room. Somebody will have to exit the level manually, because if you're alone, the only way out is way down and far below. The next thing you need is to get the Tablet of Destiny, which is dropped by the boss found in Abzu or Duat. You'll need it in 6-2, where there's a room full of shelves stacked with Decoding the tablet is like trying to read a prophecy script on a bathroom wall. Tall servant of wood marked by the Ang. Thanks, it's like asking where the aspirin is and being told bottom shelf second one from the door. At least you get a clover so you can take your sweet time getting crushed by the elevator. In the next level, your prize for not being illiterate is a mount that can fly indefinitely. All you have to do now is to reach the exit, unless you get blown off by an off-screen UFO. You'll reach Tiama's throne, at which point you fly straight up, weaving between death lasers. This looks incredibly stressful, even with a flying mount. Like, this has to be the only way you can actually do the... Hang on, I'm getting a call, 1 second. Yeah? Right, so you're saying that you can actually pull this off without the mount. A jetpack or Vlad's cape and ropes. Oh, you can do this with as little as 1 rope, that's all. And apparently before it got patched out there was a method where you'd throw a rope into the watery abyss below the boss, climb down the tentacle that's supposed to kill you and use climbing gloves to scale the outside wall and then teleport yourself back in at the top. Okay, sure, thanks. I don't know, man, whatever, I don't give a shit. Fuck that. Once you get to the top, you'll find a door that takes you to a room with a spaceship, which then blasts through the floor of the moon. And now you're on your way to, oh buddy, the sunken city. Say hello to poison dart traps, meat blocks that erase geared teammates and runs, as well as the apex predator of the biome, the frogs. I don't think this is nearly as miserable as the claustrophobic shitshow that is Home Depot. I mean, you can still fuck up, but at least it feels like you deserved it. You die mostly thanks to your complete lack of critical thinking. Should I toss this at my teammate to snatch it before the meat cube devours it? He's empty-handed. Probably. What could go wrong? Get familiar with the layout quickly, because once you reach 7-4, it's go time. The second you enter, start climbing because something is coming. And no, that's not the main threat. The real danger is the floor. Now 90% spikes and 10% your bodily fluids. This is Handan. You'll need to deal with the heads when they erupt from it. How? Well, if you've made it this far, you'll figure it out. After that, a door unlocks, step through it, and congratulations, you've achieved the second ending. Definitely, there's nothing absurd left to sink hundreds of hours into just so you can brag about it to everyone you meet. No more secrets to chase, no more doors to unlock, no labyrinth of death. Okay, look, I know what you're expecting me to bring up, but is it really worth it. I can show you how equipment has more uses than you'd expect, like using a shotgun blast to get to hard to reach spots, how you can get a free Kapala on level 1-4 if you get yourself or somebody else cursed, and how the most efficient way to whip something ahead of you. Okay, fine. There is a third ending. The Cosmic Ocean. If you want to attempt this, I suggest you give seeded runs a chance and try this one. But as a heads up, if you want the eggplant, speed up once you get to Volcana on 2-3 to grab the gift before the shopkeeper relocates his establishment. You need to collect this red bow from the first challenge, then hand it over to Waddler so you can pick it up again in the sunken city. After that, survive the sun challenge, which is considered the hardest out of all, just to get the Arrow of Light. Once you got both in your sweaty little hands, make your way to the top of Handan's lair. Win the fight, plug the arrow into its eyeball, and now you're good to go. Bow is mandatory, by the way. You can't reach Cosmic Ocean without it, even if you try to throw the arrow. So hopefully you didn't lose or break it in a stupid way. This is where your optimism goes to get euthanized. It looks infinite, but it's only 94 levels of Cosmic Torment. Depending on what you did during your run, you'll achieve a slightly shinier constellation. Or so I've heard. I've never made it that far. Hello, fellow viewers. You've been placed in stasis to be informed that this video took longer than expected because I was stubborn enough to try completing a Cosmic Ocean run. But now, I can proudly say during editing, I have witnessed a full clear of the Cosmic Ocean. And I say witness because I was dead most of it thanks to my short attention span, and I was carried by two far superior gamers. I wouldn't call it a win even if I technically helped, like when I saved one of them from a feral crocodile.
I have come to say the N-word. Mrs. Obama! Get down!
But hey, I was there, and that alone quenches my thirst for the ocean. And no, I'm not acknowledging the run just because my first constellation turned out to be a dig, absolutely not. Anyways, onwards with the video, bye bye. The level generation here is just different. Not oh, that is interesting, but oh, this blows. No shops, no Kali altars, and no pets. If you didn't bring a Kapala, then tough luck with getting health if you get poisoned. And if you want to exit, it's not enough to just find the door. At first glance, it's a simple loop. Break 3 orbs, avoid the space squid, enter the exit. But by the time you've cleared over 30 levels, you're operating under a mild case of psychosis. That's because you have to remember the exit location, plan a clear path, disarm traps, manage your bombs and ropes, avoid throwing things along the map's looping edges, and minimize the time you spend walking across the top row. But despite all that, most of your Cosmic Ocean runs will end when you enter Neo Babylon. This blink and something explodes off screen within 3 seconds of entry. I'm not even trying to make a joke that ends with an explosion that I cut it just as it happens for comedic value. A UFO might get bitch slapped by a spark trap and flung straight into whatever poor soul spawned nearby. In most cases, that's an All Might, seemingly useful for filling your nutritious hemogen smoothie, but now just another airborne projectile. And don't get me started on those asinine elevators. Slow-moving blocks that blend into the scenery so well you'll only notice them the second they flatten you like a pancake. I fucking love having my 1 hour long 99 health and eggplant crown run being ended in a fraction of a second because I disrespected the level by crouching and looking for the last orb. Take all that nonsense I just regurgitated and layered it on top of a Cosmic Ocean logic. You don't have just 3 levels. You don't have a slow moving ghost. You've got time pressure and the creeping realization that you have to pay attention to every single thing all at once the entire time you're here. But let's say, theoretically, if you consume enough illicit substances to be legally classified as a biohazard, develop telekinetic screen reading abilities, and haven't blinked in 27 days. First of all, how are you still alive? You might survive this gauntlet, but even if you play everything perfectly, the game might just decide it's bored of your shit and straight up plays dirty. Which brings me to a little game I like to call what the fuck is going to kill me this time. I'll let this clip run and I want you to guess what ends me here, okay? Got your answer? If you said a pile of bones that could reanimate into a skeleton, then congratulations. You're wrong. What actually killed me happened a second later. A motherfucking path from the ceiling that was perfectly hidden behind a fucking floating chunk of terrain! Don't even try to act like that was coming! Your eyes were on the orb you need to hit to progress, on the skeleton pile, or maybe on those moles tunneling nearby, but No one in their right mind would have guessed that there was a flying rat lying in ambush behind a frog PNG! Well, actually, Poots, that's a skill issue. Oh, how foolish of me to not live in a constant state of deranged paranoia. My bad. And while we're at it, don't be surprised when I break into your house, locate your bathroom, and deploy a greasy Philly cheesesteak powered log straight into your pipes. Because clearly, you should have expected that too. And this is where it all ends. Just as it started. Alone and confused. But something's different now. Something stayed with you. And I don't mean the sweet music this game has. I mean knowledge. You started off barely surviving the dwelling, and the moment you made it out into the jungle, you get turned into someone's meal. But each death is a lesson. A brutal, sometimes bullshit lesson, but a lesson nonetheless. Spelunky 2 is cruel if you don't bother learning its language, but once you do, it's goddamn euphoric. You start seeing patterns you'd never noticed when you first started. That corpse is not just a meat furniture, and that mummy, it's a golden geyser of projectile vomit. Any normal person will recoil at the thought of chugging ancient undead bile, but not me, because I realized the puke is technically blood code-wise, and the Kapala loves blood. Every run makes you more deranged, but also smarter. When I first started playing this game, I was fooled way too many times by reanimating skeletons, and after dying to them multiple times, I can confidently say that they still get me a lot of times. Give this game a try, throw yourself into the meat grinder and let the 5 stages of grief reshape you. But before you do that, I wanna thank you for sticking around till the end. I truly appreciate it. If you enjoyed this type of content, be sure to do all the things that would please the YouTube overlords. And a special thanks to my sandwich backer as well as all my deli benefacturers on Patreon, the true supporters of quality and delicious content. Anyways, I'm taking a break from all this nonsense of dying in caves, and what better way to unwind than by gathering ingredients from a tranquil little farm in the post-apocalyptic Ukraine, where the soil is moist, the vegetables glow ominously, and the rabbits and slugs take turns sniping me from off-screen. Until next time.